Holly played his last concert. So today in Adair, Iowa, we're going to see where Jesse James and the James Younger gang robbed or had the first successful train robbery.
Moving train robberies.
I do have a little trivia though before we start.
Okay.
Okay. So what do Buddy Holly and Jesse James have in common?
No clue.
No clue. So they both have top 40 hits from the 80s and 90s named after them. In 1989, Cher released Just Like Jesse James.
Wouldn't have got that one.
And in 1994, Weezer, Buddy Holly.
Yep, yeah. I had that one.
So there is a connection there, believe it or not. Naturally, it was raining because that's just the way it works for us.
Yeah, so unfortunately we had some inclement weather, so we had to shoot our footage very quickly, and there isn't a lot of it, but there was a heavy, very severe thunderstorm impeding right when we were coming into town there. But yeah, in July 21st of 1873, the James Younger gang absolutely did their first moving train robbery. They had conducted some bank robberies in the past, and the James Younger gang was kind of a hostile bunch. They were from the state of Missouri, and they were during the Confederacy. They were known as the Bushwhackers, which was a pro-Confederate group of vigilantes, essentially. So they wreaked havoc throughout Missouri, Kansas, in the Midwest, in the name of the Confederates. And then after the war ended, didn't like the Union, so they went around and committed violent crimes and robbed banks and conducted these train robberies. And just west of Adair, Iowa, they did the first moving train robbery known to history, and that kind of started that Wild West sweep. But yeah, so we visited the site where it actually occurred, and once again, I'm always amazed at the tactics and the strategy that these gangs had. We talked about Dillinger and Mason City. It was the same thing. History kind of did you wrong when history and Hollywood kind of did you wrong, because it's not like the movies portrayed. It wasn't 5 to 8 people on sprinting, galloping horses going alongside the train and then hopping on and then conducting this kind of hostage takeover type thing with a train. It was actually done a couple ways. Either you derailed the train, which happened here in this instance with the James Younger gang, or you stopped the train either by prompting, hey, there's danger up ahead, or you were lying to the engineer and the fireman in the actual steam engine, or you took it over like you would a hijacking of an airplane. You planted people on the train when it took off from the train station, and then you committed the robbery of taking over the train. This was a derailment. So they purposely got outside of Adair, and they waited till it was a bit of an uphill and a bend, and they had sabotaged the track. But that's how this derailment started. But to go back to the beginning is, why did they pick this train? So it was the Rock Island Chicago Pacific train, the company. There had been reports of having $75,000 worth of gold bullion that was coming west from Cheyenne and stopping in Omaha and then continuing east through Adair. And Adair was a small little area. This was what the James Younger gang thought would be an easy take. And they would take this $75,000 worth of gold bullion, which was at that time in 1873, $2 million. So that was a big deal. It was tactically done. So Frank and Cole Younger actually went to Des Moines and staked out the train and the schedules. And then a little further east, the rest of the gang sat up and waited for the train to come. But once again, bad intel. There was only about $2,000 in there at that time. How a train robbery worked was that the gang would sabotage the track. They actually had separated the rail and bent it and had a long rope out into a bushy, foresty area right off the track. So they messed with the rail, and then they sat off in the weeds. And when the train was approaching, they pulled on the rope that separated the rails, and it derailed immediately. And the reason why you didn't hear a lot of this going on is because the engineer of the steam engine, John Rafferty, actually died on impact. The train went off into a ditch area and rolled over, and it killed John Rafferty immediately. And so that hung with Jesse James. He didn't really like that because he wasn't trying to stick it to the hardworking individuals.
Right.
It was, he just didn't like the union. So once again, he was romanticized.
Right.
Jesse James, everybody knows his name to this day. He's buried just south of the Iowa-Missouri line in Kearney, Missouri. But he was well protected, and the gang was well protected in Missouri. So after they did this heist, they went right back into Missouri. In fact, he had so much sympathy for the James Younger gang in Missouri, there was actually legislation that was brought about in the Missouri government to try to give them amnesty forever. The bill narrowly passed, but they could have had their own safe haven state. But that's how well they were liked. And there's reports that the gang itself, when it was doing a heist of a train or a bank, they would look at people's hands. If you had calloused hands, they wouldn't mess with you or take any of your property.
You're a worker.
You're a worker.
Yeah.
But if you had soft hands, watch out. They were going to take all your money and your watches and all.
So like a Robin Hood situation.
But yet they never gave any money back, and they were quite ruthless as well. Remember, these people bushwhackers. So if you look up the history throughout the territories of Kansas and Missouri during that time, during the Civil War, there was some pretty amazing type of massacres and things like that would happen through this bushwhacker. So these gentlemen were no softies by any means. That's how it went about. And then the fireman, Dennis Foley, was severely injured. And so after that, the James gang and the Younger gang stated that they would never do that again. They would never derail a train and injure people, because I think there was like 14 to 20 passengers that were also injured as well. And they didn't care to do that because, once again, they were not after every man. They were just trying to get the big ticket things. Two people would overtake the engine. They'd take the engineer. They would take the fireman, which was the person that shoved the coal in the steam engine. There would be two people that would secure that, so they would have control of the train that way. Then there would be people that would work on the safes with pickaxes, and then try to beat up the safe to get inside the safe. And then there would be two of the gang's members that would go through the passenger cars and shake everybody down and grab what they could there. On this one, after it derailed, they got the $2,000 worth of gold bullion from the safes, but then they were angry, so they shook down the passengers that were still alive. There was a group of about 30 Chinese immigrants that were going east to look at schools, colleges, and they got another $1,000 off of them. So it was about a $3,000 in that day take.
Right.
So, but after that, the James gang and the Younger gang said no more of that. So they did do some train robberies after that, but it was strictly, they started fires, they waved flags, they took over train stations, and would stop the trains at the stations and then shake down the trains from there after that, because they felt really bad and horrible about the engineer John Rafferty passing away on that.
So it's not what Hollywood portrayed.
No. So if you ever look at railroad tracks, they're usually elevated, and to have a horse that could sustain that for that period of time and to be on that level ground is almost impossible.
Right.
Jesse James's horse was well known. It was a former racehorse. It was called Kate, but it was one of the fastest horses that anyone had ever seen. So the getaway was a big deal. So once again, dying breed. They became public enemy number one. Jesse James became a wanted outlaw for sure. And then the Pinkertons came in and started providing security for a lot of trains heading east and west in the rural areas. And once again, once you're in the sights of law enforcement, you normally don't have much longer.
No. And he did not.
No, but they are forever cemented in history, and it was enough for us to take us out to Adair, Iowa to take a look.
If you like this content, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, get notifications for more videos just like this from JCJ Adventures 48.